Welcome, everyone, to another Take Your Power Back Now podcast. My name is Vanessa Simpkins. Joining me is the amazing Lisa Lajoie, and we decided to come on here today to talk to you guys about the power of prayer, about demons, because demons are real, and so is the power of prayer. It's not to scare anybody. Um, I wanted to just make kind of public some of the experiences that I've had here in the last 6 years, and the power of prayer, the power of Jesus Christ in our lives, how good God is. So this is not a podcast to scare people, and at the same time, through my conversations and experiences with people, not a lot of people want to talk about demons. Okay, they're afraid, and perfect love casts out all fear. So yeah, this is the topic of today's podcast. Um, there are experiences that I've had in the last 6 years that, when I started studying the Bible, maybe really studying the Bible about a year ago, became very evident for me. And that's the topic of today's podcast. I don't really know where to start. And Lisa is a dear soul sister friend of mine. And we've had some pretty deep dive conversations about this. So here we are.
Let's go. I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about all of this, actually. I think it's such a hard conversation to have for people, but it's so obvious once you understand, if you've been through it, what it actually is when you're talking about the dark forces that actually exist around us all. And I'm like, part of the reason we were talking about getting together and having a conversation is because it's easier to talk about something when you're amongst friends and loved ones, right? I always feel like it's always easier to have a conversation when people understand you, know you, and feel you and trust you. And so I wanted to actually do the experience to be able to talk to you about what you went through. You know what I mean? A lot of this for me is inspired by my love for you and just wanting to have an open dialogue about what you've been through, because we've walked hand in hand through a lot of the same struggles and a lot of different struggles, but you've always seemed to be there for me exactly when I need it. And so I think it's so nice that we have this opportunity to do that now today, right? So good.
Well, if
So
you thank you. And if you would have told me, 10 years ago, hey, Vanessa, you'll be casting out demons, I would have laughed in your face. I would have laughed and then I would have peed in my pants. Okay. I would have laughed so hard. And the kind of the pieces really came together for me last week. There was a prophecy of revelation Bible study here at the church, and this amazing man came. His name is Taj Peklov from Hawaii, and I came home from this event, and all of a sudden there's a fire that had broken out close to my home, like within 4 miles of my house, at the exact place that I was hiking at. I went there 3 4 times the week before, and I kind of freaked out. I was like, what is going on here? This is really close to home, and praying about this, and went outside with a neighbor. It's really windy, and 11 o'clock, I was like, you know what? Don't be stupid. Pack up the car. So I got a proper sweat on at 11 p.m. at night, watching the kind of emergency, alerts, evacuation getting closer and 2 3 sections away. And I said, don't be stupid. Pack up the car. And at around, it's they stopped, and I kind of calmed down, and I was on the couch at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'd like, hey, prayers, please, posted something on Facebook, and my aunt responded, and so she's awake at like 4 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast. I'm like, what are you doing awake?
mhm.
And she was saying, my health, it's been 9 years. I've been dealing with this. And I started to see everything through a new perspective of spiritual warfare and spiritual attacks. And looking at, wow, I'm going to call her up in the morning. And the next morning I got up and I was angry. I was like,
Mhm.
wow, here you are just trying to rattle you. So the enemy will use, if it can't get your health, your home, your business, your finances, your relationships, or your marriage, if it can't get you, or you can't get your faith, it's going to come after. It's going to cause distractions, and it's going
Mhm.
to cause you to be busy, right? And so I realized this, and there's nothing to be really afraid about when you know the truth. When you are using the word, when you have faith in God. it overcomes all fear, and you see through a different lens. So I phoned up my aunt and I was like, you know what? She's not very open to spiritual things, but we had a wonderful conversation. I prayed for her. This is not in any way to highlight, oh, Vanessa, you pray for people. This is not what I'm saying, but the fact that I saw this through a spiritual lens of, wow, this is an attack. And the truth is, when I first moved here to Mount Shasta, I didn't sleep for the first few years because when I closed my eyes, I saw technology flying through space on fire. I saw dark entities on my property.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the UFOs were going to land in my front yard. And I mean, I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Um, all of my Facebook advertising accounts were shut down. I don't even know how
Yep.
many. I had 25 different ad accounts,
That's
a
right.
booming team of 30 people
Yep.
supporting my work, empowering women to overcome fear and thrive.
Yeah.
I mean, I got divorced. The dog died. It was an onslaught. Went through another relationship. And so last summer, I started to turn I started to like, you know what? It's time to take your power back now, Vanessa. Let's get back in here and just start a whole new Facebook ads account. And the minute I did this, okay,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
minute I did
Crazy
this,
story. Yeah. Yeah.
here comes my neighbor talking to me about a dark force through somebody else. And I had gotten into casting demons. I had just gotten into like looking at Facebook, Instagram reels, and I had started a Bible study in my home last spring, last summer. And here, my neighbor's approaching me. She was being attacked by deer. She was walking down the street with a bat. And so she comes, at the top of my driveway as I'm leaving one day. And I just tell her, I don't really know what to do about this. And I see her the following morning, and I don't really want to talk to her. Like, I don't want to confront her at all.
Right.
And I'm out with my, in the garden. I'm, whatever I'm doing in the garden. And I think, I hear, go and get the garbage can, because it's Sunday morning. Garbage comes Saturday morning. I'm like, I don't want to. I'm just going to take the garbage can and run down the driveway. I don't want to deal with her. And sure enough, because hey, whoa, 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 she comes over to me, and I'm like, oh man. And I just look at her and I say, here's what I've been doing. And I just said this straight out to her, just to say, this is what I've been doing against dark forces. And I said, the Lord rebuke you, Satan. Bind up these critters, arrest them, and cast them out in the name of Jesus. And this woman's eyes rolled back in her head. She shook, okay? And her tongue stuck out of her mouth like a freaking lizard. Right in front of me. And and the other thing she was doing was putting an air horn on and I was like, what is this air horn? I said, are they doing the water in the neighborhood? No, she's trying to scare away the deer are attacking her. It was just like
Unbelievable. Yeah.
unbelievable. But
Yeah.
no more air horns. Stop walking down the street with a bat when she walked her dog. I mean, it was radical. At the exact same time, at that in the 48-hour period, all of a sudden these disgruntled people, old clients of mine from 6 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 of them at the same time, start posting negative reviews on my Trustpilot within, like, at the same time. And
Unreal.
I'm like, let me just go and confront and address this now.
Yeah.
I'm going to take my power back now. I'm going to confront this, which I did. But if you think that this is unrelated, think again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been really getting into there's a playlist here on YouTube that I highly recommend. It's called The Courts of Heaven. There's an amazing guy named Robert Henderson who talks about how to pray, how to use intercessory prayer, which is what Jesus came here to do, right? In
Mm-hmm.
intercessory, no one gets to the Father except through me. And how to actually rebuke, cancel, silence any and all legal cases brought against you in the courts of heaven. The
Mm-hmm.
enemy may use also any inequity or sin in your bloodlines, and how to cancel, clear, silence that through the blood of Jesus. How to open up your book of heaven so that you receive all of your portion now without delay, and that the enemy must repay 7 times what he has taken So there is a spiritual warfare going on here in this on this planet right now. I think I'm running this peaceful profits funnel, helping people automate their courses. And really, all I do is pray for people all day long. Okay, people message me out of the blue. I find it fascinating,
Yeah.
and I don't want to make light of the fact
Yeah.
of how people may have been attacked, whether it's financially, with their health, in their mind. Yesterday I had all these aphids. I went outside and I looked. I was like, "Oh heck, no, not in my garden."
Yeah.
Like distractions with your business, in your home, and how surrendering to really allowing God to work through your life
Hmm.
is such a powerful, powerful thing at this time.
Yeah. It is. Let's talk about how you got to this place. From my perspective, I want to talk about that a bit because I've known you for a long time. And the thing that I know about you that is really special is whenever one of your greatest gifts is to try to find empowerment in every situation. So you're a persevere, when you're down, you're seeking, you're looking, you're open, you're always in prayer. I always know that about you. You're always looking for, okay, like show me the way, show me the way, show me the way, right? And when the way comes in and you have this revelation of there really is a warfare going on, there really are dark forces coming through people, their situations. When you have this revelation, like how did you find certainty? What moment was it that you were like, wow, this is real? This is like when I came back to a certain place. You told me a story about, you know, I think you were in the water and something happened. Tell us about that story. Cause I found that unbelievably life changing, you know?
So there were years where I prayed to die. There are about 2 years here living in this house. I mean, an onslaught of not just like
It was
faith,
bad. I know. Yeah.
not just like, oh, this, it's time to pivot your business or something. I mean, an onslaught of like, why live anymore? And the spirit will, negative entities will do that. They will cause depression. They will cause wanting to die. Okay. I didn't know this then, but I was like, I just prayed to die for two
They
years,
hit
and
you
every
when you're weaker. They hit you when you're weaker or when you're going through something.
and
Right?
cause
That's right.
strongholds in the mind, which
That's
make
right.
you expect the enemy instead of expecting God.
Yeah.
The renewing of the mind is so powerful. I mean, this, multimillionaire woman's empowerment leader praying to die. Like, what is so?
What
But
happened? Yeah.
I decided I'm going to go and I'm going to escape. I'm going to go to Hawaii. This is my safe place. This is where I've been going there for 15 years. So I go to Hawaii and I go snorkeling. Okay. Now, so it's a few times I've nearly died in my life, and two of them have been snorkeling, not bungee jumping. Okay. Not even surfing, snorkeling. And so I'm in the ocean and I neglected to see this big sign that says, swim at your own risk, riptides. And I see all these tourists there with their snorkel masks. And I said, I've never snorkeled there. Let me go try this out. So I jump in the water and all of a sudden I look up and I'm way out there. I mean,
Yeah.
way out there, and being pulled to the rocks. Like they're right behind me. And
Wow.
I'm sweating. I'm coughing, sputter. I'm sweating in the water. And I mean, the paradox is for years I prayed to die and I called up to Jesus. I was like, Jesus, I don't want to die. Like
Hmm.
full on, straight up call up to Jesus. And then I had this idea of like, well, swim that way. I'm like, the rocks are right there. They're right there, the rocks. Swim this way. Don't swim to shore. Swim right here. And I was like, wow. And I got out, and that I was staying at a friend's house, and he had been very, very sick during COVID. His wife had helped him, and they had left for New Zealand. I was staying in their house. They were drinkers. Okay. So we're talking a little bit about sin and how this is an open doorway, gateway, people who use drugs, drink, when you're
That's right.
not in
That's
your body, when you are in this, when you drink, you're checked out. Guess who comes in? Okay. Open doorway. So I'm in their house. I'm watching their house. I'm staying there. I'm paying to stay there, quite a lot of money. And I'm so disgusted by the windows are so dirty in these people's houses that I start to clean their windows one day. And like talk about the windows of the soul, right? And it's
right.
11 o'clock in the morning. I'm stone cold sober, and I see this dark hand of death come out of their daughter's window. I
Mm-hmm.
was not. It was not a bird. It didn't make a sound. It was a darkness that came out of the window at 11 o'clock in the morning. And I have never been so afraid in all of my life.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never seen anything like that. I'm not crazy. Stone cold sober.
Mm.
Later that night, I projectile vomited 3 times.
Hmm.
Now, even when I used to drink, I don't drink. I'm sober 3 years. I mean, 3 years in August.
That's awesome.
I and I thought to myself, is this what happens when you get sober? Like, are the UFOs landing in the front yard? Is this what happens when you get divorced and heal trauma? Like, I've been searching, like,
You
what is
kind of
going
figured
on
it out.
here? What's this? The whole world are waking up here? What's happening here?
Yeah.
Um, but I realized, and so that was like that was terrifying for me. Looking back now, I'm like, oh, this is demons exorcised coming out of you, and I rented my house here in Mount Shasta on Airbnb, and I did a lot of like cleaning of the house, clean.
Hmm.
It's almost like cleaning of my soul.
Hmm.
And so that was an experience. That was a big experience. I had another experience. I don't know if it was before or after that, maybe before, where I was doing a lot of these medical medium cleanses.
Hmm.
And so I was like in super shape and, eating super healthy. And once a week, I was like, I need a burger, man. I just need to come back down a world. Like, let me have a pizza or a burger and like come back down in my body, like, boom. And so
Hmm.
I go to this restaurant here in town, the Black Bear Diner, and this guy walking around in the diner, and he's got all these dreadlocks, and he's super stoned. Not that, people with dreadlocks are super stoned, but this guy was stoned out of his mind, and he was creeping around with a coffee in the gift area of the restaurant that was dark and closed. I was like, what is this guy doing? I'm like, get me out of here. I paid my bill, got in the car, and I'm driving home. And it must have been like September, October. It's not that cold. And I was shaking, shaking. I couldn't stop shaking.
Wow.
And I get all the way home and I'm like, what is this? I turn on the seat heaters and then finally I realized, back then I was very naive, but what I did know was just to say, you can't do this. And I said, unhook, poof, and it left.
Mm.
And I was like, then I called my friend Danny, who's, a teacher at the release technique for 10 years. That's how I met him. And he's like, you've got to start putting, this is how, spirits entities can come and attack you through, people who use drugs and this and that. And I was like,
That's right.
wow.
That's right. Yeah.
And he said, put some pillars of fire in your mind's eye around your property, cloak it with white light,
Hmm.
drive a copper rod down through the center of your house till it touches water, create this toward force field,
Hmm.
call in ascended masters Jesus. I did this at night. I said, I'll try anything at this point
Yeah.
because I started to see, whoa, maybe I've been being attacked, in my dreams.
You're getting clarity now.
Maybe
Yeah.
this is why I wasn't able to sleep for so long. And so I started doing this instantly. I heard something leave the house and I felt peaceful. I started sleeping. And then I would have to do that every place I went to sleep that wasn't my own house.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, though, all the people that came and rented my house on Airbnb had 5-star reviews. They love it. And they, it's like such a calming space, such a
Right.
peaceful sanctuary space. It's
Yeah.
super. People say it as soon as they walk in the door. So I mean, there was another experience. I mean, I'm sharing this to let people know that I see this all of this now as like a test or like an initiation or like a um to know what peace really is not, to
Hmm.
know the stark opposite of that.
Yeah.
Because since I have been, studying the Bible, praying, going to church,
Mm.
like what a peace, what a peace to have
Well,
God
it's
in my life.
drastic, right? It's drastic. It's
It's
very clear. It's like drastic change suddenly when it's released, when darkness is released. Like,
And yes, and it doesn't want you to go free.
you
Okay,
know,
this is it wants to
yeah,
keep you in the dark.
yeah.
And the way that God just kept coming at me. I mean, I came
Mm.
back from Hawaii. I had a guy that was shoveling a driveway give me a Bible. I had a Jehovah Witness lady knock on my door for 9 months. I had an old pastor give me a saddle. And he was like, watch this Chosen. And I was like, oh my, the Chosen, what is this? And I watched it in the movie
Yeah.
theaters. And it's, the you've got to watch this. It's
It's so
actually
good.
the only show that I can actually watch. Most of television is just a bunch of programming, nonsense, bullshit,
Yep.
fuckery. All
Yeah.
right. It is so gross.
Yep.
Like all I could do was watch it Chosen for 9 months. I just watched it 4 times over. I'm watching
Mm.
it a fifth time now. There's so much more.
Yeah.
Um, and so my friend Jim was like, "Here's a saddle, and oh, I've got to bring you this bridle." And the episode of The Chosen that I watched in the theater was the one of Jesus where he's going to Jerusalem to get crucified, and he pulls out the bridle, right? And I'm like, "Here's my friend Jim saying, I got to get you a bridle, but the riding boots." I'm like, "What are you saying?" It's just like,
Yeah.
wow, so
Yeah.
radical. And to see life is it's such a different world. It's a
But
completely different world
yeah,
because this world here is not real. This is a reflection of what's going on in the spirit realm. Your
that's
heaven
right.
on earth, on
That's
earth
right.
as it is in heaven. This is we get to see, it's like the battleground. We really are in a spiritual war, and
Mhm.
I'm so grateful. I am so grateful to God. I'm so grateful for Jesus. I'm so grateful for all of the support that I've had and the clarity
Mhm.
around what is really happening here.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I think it's so important too to share the experience of what can happen to people because we were talking the other day and I was saying I've been getting attacked since I was a little kid. And I knew because I could see through my, whatever, my abilities to see that I was being attacked. Like I had shadow people chasing me in my house and like it was really, really, really scary. And I've had help from different experiences, and in the end the faith that I have had has been the saving grace, the safe to find the solution, the faith to find the solution, the faith in show me the way, like what do I need during this time, like what's going on, you know what I mean, like what is going on, where is this coming from. And even like our conversations recently have clarified for me even more about like what this all means and how it comes through, and how these dark forces will come through people, people you love, situations, and the evolution in the mind is to just understand this is a truly in existence. You can't have light without dark. It's part of our nature. It's part of life. It's part of everything. You know what I mean? And the existence of it around us impacts the life in such a very specific way. And it's common. It's not like everyone is different. The situations are so similar when a person is being attacked by these demons, these energies, these dark forces, right? So it's important to share like what happens.
It's
What
important to
happens?
share your testimony. It's important to pray
Absolutely.
for people. The power of prayer is
Yeah.
real. It is a real thing.
Yeah.
Um, and the power of the word, the spoken word, that Bible is a living thing. I mean, I've watched this Chosen
Hmm.
and I'm like, oh, there's this really cool Bible verse by John. I'll tell you another story. And I
Yeah.
go upstairs and I open up the Bible and it's the exact, I just decided to flip it open like this. And it's the exact same Bible verse I was just watching. And I got so freaked out. I closed the book. I'm like, wow, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So there was a man here who lived in a Winnebago, like a motorhome with
Yeah.
his dogs, and he used to clean up on the yard for me here. That's a big property, and I would pay him to clean up, on the yard. And he had his motorhome kind of crap out down the street near the train tracks, and I brought him a piece of cake one day, and he was just feeling so like down and out about life, and he opened the door, and his little dog ran out, and so we were talking, and all of a sudden this white truck came and just hit his dog and killed it. Bang! Guy's dog
Wow.
is dead.
Wow.
And he runs over to the little dog on the pavement and he's just, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm standing there, wow. And the guy gets out of the white truck and he walks over and he's like, I'm so sorry, I didn't see, and he starts to like explain himself to me. And I was like, hey man, I'm just a witness. I don't even talk to me. Like, hey, I just don't even, I'm not judging nobody.
Hmm.
I don't know what the goony goo goo is going on here. All of a sudden, and my friend's still, oh my God, oh my God. All of a sudden, the dog jumps back to life and runs across the road.
Oh Lord.
Miracle. It was a
Wow.
miracle.
Wow.
And the my friend who this happened to his dog, he did not have one bad thing to say to the person who hit it. There was no animosity. I mean, it was a miracle. It was a total miracle. And so I go home and I go into, I don't know what's going on. I open up my garage and I have my father's paintings, okay, the reproductions, not his originals, but reproductions of his paintings in the garage. And I see this locust, this huge, I mean, it was a huge,
Hmm.
bigger than a grasshopper on his painting. And I was like, hey, get out of here, get the locust out of here. And I was, it alerted me to a book that I had in my garage. Now, so many of my clients have mailed me their books or send me books. For sure I didn't buy this book, okay, because it was a religious book. It's a book of John, okay. I would not have bought this book, okay. I did not grow up in the church or religious in any way, but it all of a sudden I saw this and I said, I'm gonna read this thing, maybe this is important. I just saw witnessed a miracle and I opened it up and it talked about the dead coming back to life and
Hmm.
you'll see miracles, signs and miracles and things. I was so freaked out. Um, we're living in this miraculous time. I think people say, call end times, and it's not to scare people. It's just to know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Because the peace that you have doesn't mean that when you walk with God, you're not going to have challenges. It means that you have a way out. You have a way to peace. You have there's so much power in the word and prayer for others, and um,
I think that's so significant that you have to find your way out of where you shouldn't be, don't want to be. Find your way out. Like that's really, really significant in any area of life. Like, and it's funny because I was thinking while you're sharing, I'm like, so you like I've known you so long, and I know a lot about your heart's mission. In the sense of like wanting to help people find their way out, find their power, just get back
take
into
your
who you
power
are,
back now.
take your
Yes.
power back now, and like what that means from every angle. And this is like it's like the next level. It's like you do that for money, you do that for health, well-being, you do that for emotional struggles, you do that to clear out the past, you help people with all these different things, their emotions, to learn about what to say goodbye to in order to become and be. And here you are, and this is the next level of growth for
Next
you.
evolution.
It's the
Yes.
next evolution of growth
Lisa,
where you're here and you're like, okay, there are things happening in the energy world that you need to know about, so you don't think you're crazy. So you understand, like, these things might be happening to you very subtly. They might be coming from people you love. Open your eyes differently, look differently,
well, that enemy will definitely try and
every way.
rattle you is what I will say, rattle you. And it can't, once you know the truth, it can't rattle you. But you must have absolute faith in
That's
you.
right.
You got to know what it is, what's going on here to
That's
be
right.
able to identify and say, okay,
Yep.
this is how I deal with it. Lisa came to my very first workshop ever in 2011 or 12 or 10. I don't remember. It was a
Yeah.
snowstorm and I couldn't believe it. 20 people showed up for this workshop and Lisa
Yeah.
was one of these people. And I mean, this was over 15 years ago, for
Yeah.
13, 15 years ago now. And we've had a lot of conversations throughout the years. She came to my live
Hmm.
event. Lisa spoke on my stage. Um, so we've had a lot of history,
Yeah.
a lot of history together,
Yeah.
and I'm so grateful, for your wisdom and your experience because you have also been very much into the spirit realm and experience these same kind of attacks. We were talking about this yesterday
Oh yeah.
about so what was your experience? What was one of the moments that really
I've had so
alerted you?
many. I have to tell you, I've had so many, like a lot, and I've had different help throughout time. But in the end, the most important thing is where you hold the most faith is where you need to go, to cast out, to get rid of. So we have to find the faith in order to. So for me, the hardest part about being attacked by dark entities, dark forces, and I can feel them, sense them. I feel them. They knock on my window sometimes, like I've had really hard experiences. They've come through people I love. It's in their students I've helped, clients I've tried to overhelp, and my love got used against me many times because I felt like giving love was really important, but you have to give love with your faith at hand and not take or try to overgive or take responsibility for somebody else's life. That's the higher power's job. It's not my job to do that, right? I'm a vehicle to help, right? So for me, the attacks came a lot of the time through the love that I was giving. And then there would be a grab on that and a hold on that. I want more. I'm going to take from you, a siphoning off of this experience. And then all of a sudden, I used to have a group that I've had lots of different groups doing teaching for them and stuff like that. And one of them in particular, one of the women in the group became possessed, and I knew it. I saw it. I could see it. Her behavior changed. She was moving in this beautiful direction. All of a sudden, switch. Here, I'm with an addict, an alcoholic. Now she's going towards a dark road. It was super clear. And I was trying to help her, and then I realized I can't help her. Through my own prayers, it was like, you can't help her. And I tried to help her address that particular thing. And what happens is, I think people don't take being attacked seriously enough, and they don't realize you're being attacked, and that's your mind losing itself. You don't like, oh, it's not that bad. It can't be. It's not possible. And and that's exactly what it is. There's something on your back. There's something attacking you. And
And
you have, go ahead. You have.
when you're praying for somebody, you can pray for somebody,
Right.
and
That's right.
if they do not fill themselves with the word, with
That's right.
love, with the truth, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
the demons come back 7 times stronger. It says that in the Bible. So
Mm,
to be, we can pray for people, but ultimately they need to surrender to God, to a higher power, in
mhm,
order to be filled with that Holy Spirit. All right.
mhm. That's
And
right.
they have to want to do that. And when you're sharing about siphoning, there was a woman a couple of years ago. She was doing this Reiki energy on me. I mean, I was trying everything. I
Yeah.
even told my ex-husband I didn't think him and the kids were going to make it on the spaceship. Okay. Like, I was serious. I did not, I expected the UFOs to land in my front yard, man. I was like,
Yeah.
mind you, in the Bible, it talks about Zion, Mount Zion. A mountain is actually the courts of heaven.
Mhm.
Is kind of what I'm seeing in, places like Mount Shasta and Kauai, Hawaii. There's a lot of different spiritual energies and
That's
entities,
right.
and
Yeah.
people that pray to dead things, you know,
Mhm.
not a living God, but dead things. This is
That's
another gateway, okay? Another doorway of demons. So
another
you got to
danger.
be
Mhm.
very discerning about
That's
who you spend your time with,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
who you surround yourself with.
Mm,
People call it yoked. Who are you with? Um, and I've experienced this too. So discerning. Anyways, a couple of years ago, this woman was doing this Reiki on me a couple times a week. I was just trying anything. And I had in a meditation one day, I was seeing this all of a sudden in my mind's eye. I'm lying down in my bed meditating at night, okay? And in my mind's eye, I see this Schmeagle above me in a canyon. I'm in a canyon.
mhm,
There's a Schmeagle, okay, from the
mhm,
Lord of the Rings above me with an umbilical cord attached to me, red, white, black, and gold
mm,
umbilical cord,
mm,
siphoning my energy. And I look up and I'm like, hey, you can't do that. And
mhm.
it disappeared. It took off. And as it did that, the umbilical cord in my stomach, physical in my body, unhooks. My stomach is going like this. I'm in
Unreal.
my bed saying, what the heck is Goonie Goo Goo, man? This is unbelievable. You know,
Mhm.
and then I envisioned myself, I'm with my king on this, in our thrones. And
Yeah.
I would always pray, like, I'm married to my king, and I always thought it was gonna be, a dude, but like didn't know it was Jesus. You know what I mean? Ha ha. I'm so grateful, ha ha. But that is real. It's a real thing. I also, I want to tell stories because I mean, I could fill a book with stories. And
Yes, you could.
yeah, 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 yeah. There was another, in the physical, driving down the street, right, almost the same day or the next day after this demon in the neighbor business, was a guy opening his car. I'm driving down the street, and here's a guy, getting into his car door facing me, and he looked like the devil. I mean, the sneer he had on his face, and I was like freaked out, but I just started praying, like, wow. And it's not that you are. bad or being punished, is that you are so good of the light, you are so powerful that the enemy wants to rip you out of that, to distract you, to destroy, to so that you don't claim your throne and power of God. So that's really what it is. You
That's
know,
what happened to me exactly in the moment where there was another level. Boom, I was totally attacked by those I was helping.
and through the power of the word,
That's
and
right.
prayer and Jesus, you experience what is true. That
That's right.
there you are protected, armored up with the armor of God. This is one of the prayers that I every day,
Mm-hmm.
um, because then you are free of that. It can't touch you. It can't. It can
I often
try.
say, I often say I stand in the light of Christ.
Mm.
And I get a feeling, for me, that's something so beautiful because I get a feeling of that presence just around me, surrounding me, and I'm good. I'm like, thanks. I'm good. You know?
It
Very
is well, yeah, it's
precious.
I was afraid to tell people these stories. I was afraid to talk about it. I went to a wedding recently and I just started sharing with a woman and she was saying, I got attacked by this witch who gave me this necklace and
That's
then
right.
necklace exploded. She was
Mhm.
diagnosed with something, a health related issue. And I'm like, spiritual attack, man.
Yeah,
And so I started sharing these stories, and sharing your testimony is really a powerful thing.
it's so important.
Yeah. All of the glory to God. Right. And so her husband was listening, and at the end of the night, I was like, I'm gonna go home now. And they're like, thank you so much for sharing your stories. And I was like, y'all don't think I'm nuts, because this is these strongholds in your mind that the enemy creates,
Yes.
that
So
have you expect the enemy instead of expecting God.
that's right.
You know,
That's so true. Whoa, that's so true.
and
Just look
and
at unworthiness, how it's become in our world, how huge and enormous that is. That weakness, that sense of like, I can't have it. It's not for me. Something wrong
be,
with me. That
be,
whole thing is
because of
demonic.
the stronghold of the
That's right.
mind,
That's
it
right.
is like expecting the worst instead of expecting God.
That's
And
right.
it talks about renewing of the mind.
Mhm.
And, I was very, very, very successful at teaching people how to renew their mind through the power of, the word I am, your subconscious mind.
Mhm.
And in 2019, all of that stopped. Like there was nothing I could really, it just, so I learned there's a
Unbelievable.
whole other level here. There's
Yeah.
another realm. These realms are real. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
I
wow.
know that's really
A
like it's so clear.
whole other
Yeah.
level of truth.
And
That
then
I'm
you've
I'm
seen it with
grateful.
others.
I'm
Yeah.
grateful to have
Oh,
experienced that because
yeah.
I know what that is now too.
Yeah, and you understand what was holding you back too. You understand like where you were, where you were getting lost and why. You know what I mean? I think that's so important, like, because we don't know what you, and there's many, many people that are going to hear this and they just from the storylines, just from listening and saying, oh, you felt a weird presence. Oh, you saw a weird vibration around you. Oh, you saw something passing by you. Oh, some people changed that normally were a certain way with you. They started behaving differently. Pay attention to those things because that's not maybe about you or something's wrong with you. It's maybe something's really going on around you because you are in the light,
Yeah,
and they need the solution. So what we're talking about, what you're sharing, what you're, the number one thing for me is to find your faith, to be able to understand the power that lives inside of us individually, to know that, to feel that, to be full of that, 100% full, because there's no more room for anything or any darkness from anywhere.
that's right. It can't
You
get
know?
you because there are people who are like you said, they're possessed. They're possessed with all kinds of spirits, the spirit of Jezebel, the spirits of,
Yeah,
witchcraft, sorcery,
yeah,
like all that is
that's real.
when you see, you see, and the blind shall see, you will see.
Hmm.
You will see people for what they are. I sometimes I live in a very this is a very peaceful sanctuary. And I'm like, oh, I need to go and, travel and this and that. Whenever I travel, people come up to me and they're like, I got a dark entity. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I think I'm coming here to, go and go and have a good time and go and explore. And people are like, I have an entity. I'm like, all right, well, let's make some prayers, and how'd you sleep? I slept really well. And it's fascinating to me. It's
Mm,
absolutely fascinating. Um, and so I believe that it's really important to know the truth, to have find, like you said, find your faith and test it and prove it,
mhm.
because it's immediate. When you pray for guidance or help, when you pray to God, it's the answer is immediate.
Right. What would you
Right?
tell someone to look for? Like, what would you tell them from your experience yourself? Like, listen, if these types of things are happening, like, just check. Let's look at a different perspective.
I call it like the onslaught. I mean, it's there is, people that suffer from long-standing health issues, people who,
Mm,
um, it just one failure after the next, that it's like a cycle that can't be broken.
yeah.
It defies normal. Like whenever I hear somebody say, you can't make this shit up, I'm like,
Mhm,
ah, this is, yeah, there's, my aunt was telling me, I think somebody's trying to kill me. I'm like, okay, well, that's right. There is an entity. Let's knock that out.
mhm.
And again, there's a playlist on YouTube that I highly recommend about cleansing your bloodlines
That's
and
good.
using Robert Henderson's. I've got some of his books, which are really cool. One of them is on accessing wealth through the courts of heaven and the power of prayer. And so I'll just leave that there. It's a public playlist on YouTube. Some of my favorite um, videos and collections. I send it to people,
Mhm,
um, because you can pray for people, but the person themselves have to, first of all, you have to really be. It's almost like God wants you. It's like God's jealous. He wants all of your heart, and so
mhm,
like surrendering, you get to a point where you're just like, all right, man, you surrender, and that's what
mhm,
God wants, right?
mhm,
um and then you'll see just how loved you really are,
mhm.
really the truth that sets you free. So in terms of like, how do people know if
Yeah.
weird things, or if they're being spiritually attacked? I mean, for I watched something last night with my friend Montana. People that have prophetic gifts, or gifts of healing, or gifts of like casting demons,
Mhm,
usually get attacked in their dreams.
mhm.
So
Yep.
there was a dream. I remember I had this dream years ago where there was a woman being kidnapped, and I was like opening the car door and helping her get out, and I woke up. I literally, like, my body, like, boom, came like 90 degrees, like shot out
Mhm.
of bed, and I was screaming help in
Yeah.
my sleep. It's like 3 in the morning. And I was like, wow, my heart's pounding. I'm like, is that for me? Like, what is that? And I was like, maybe God wants me to help find, like, kidnap people, or I don't know, like maybe I should talk about it on a Facebook Live. Like, I don't know what's going on here. But these dreams, being attacked in your dreams, um, I think, relevant to take note of.
Mhm, mhm. Looking for things happening in life, Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
as you said, it's not that the people around you are evil or bad, or
Mhm.
they're not bad people, but they can be possessed.
Yeah, they can be used to
They can be
limit your life. They can be used
open
to use.
channels.
That's
Yeah.
right.
If
That's
they're
right.
into sin, which is like, having sex with a whole bunch of people,
Mhm,
uh, drugs, alcohol. I mean, it's kind of radical when you start looking at life this way, because we're programmed that it's cool to drink beer and fuck around, and like, you're so cool. I'm like, I that's not cool to me at all. I mean,
yeah.
my life
Well, I
is
can
too
tell you,
short
like,
to be wasted.
I'm a recovering person too, you know that. And when I was young, I used to go always I was going to bars and all these types of things, and when at different points, I could like, you can feel, like, I could see it. I could see what was around in these bars. I had to be cleansed and purified when I sobered up because I had so much shit on me, so many entities, so many attacks, so many holes in my system, in my body, my energy system, in my heart, just from being in the environment. Because
Yeah.
the environment is like possessed and obsessed with possession, if you know what I mean. It's like just this, so like people that are, when we're lost or we're vulnerable, you know what I mean, they're going after very specific vulnerabilities because it works. That's why the demons do that. That's why the darkness does that, you know what I mean. It comes through in all these places where you're letting go, where you're lost, where you're confused, where you're screwed up, where you're like you can't
Also,
find yourself.
also where there's trauma. Okay. So
Where there's
if
trauma.
you look at
Yes,
trauma as another gateway, because when you have trauma, you're not really there present. You're triggered and you're out. You're
that's
not
right.
embodied, right? So then
Not
what comes
whole.
in?
Mhm.
So that's another area to kind of look at. It's not just alcohol. It's not just drugs. It's not just
Mhm.
fornication. It's not, their greed. Um,
Well, what you're running from is running after you,
yeah.
you know? So, like, if we're running away, then we're not whole, then we're definitely susceptible to all kinds of things. But I do remember specifically that was crazy feeling. And I would bring home stuff home. You know, I remember because I was living with somebody and you could feel it. The house would change. Whatever I would carry that was carrying on me that I was unaware of. And this is when I'm 15, 16, 17 years old. I have no clue. I definitely had trauma. I became a raging alcoholic. You know, it's like, and you don't realize that the thing that we're not dealing with inside, with the trauma we're not dealing with, is growing in itself, in our behavior, in our minds, and then we are completely vulnerable,
Hmm. Yeah.
completely vulnerable to the other level of darkness, just like, we lose complete power of ourselves at that point, you know.
Mhm.
I also find it interesting too to talk about like the different layers, because like even though you have all this power, this knowledge, this awareness, you're helping people, you're, in this big business, there's this one area where there's an unawareness. You're not aware of the spiritual warfare and you get
Well,
attacked with all that knowledge you have in yourself. I think that's so significant to talk about. Like, how does that hit you when you think, okay, I could help in all these ways. I was doing all these things. And then this one area, I got
I was
attacked.
completely ignorant in all of that. In 2019, there was
Okay.
somebody on my team whose son had died of cancer,
Yeah.
and I watched her go down, a really dark path.
Okay.
Um, there were a lot of. I mean, I had no idea. I had no idea this was, real. Like it
What do you
wasn't.
think the mindset is for people that closes their eyes to that possibility? Like what kind of things are we ignorant to as people that don't help us realize the energy around us?
Well, it's kind of like this. There's like this fake world. The world that we live in here is really not real. I mean, there's a lot of
Mhm.
distraction. There's a lot of escapism. There's so much of this, and it's cool. It's cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's so
It's the thing to
cool.
do.
Oh yeah, you're not cool. It's like, well, where are you getting that validation from? It's not getting it from God. You're getting it from this
Yeah.
person out here, and that's a trap. Um, so I mean, the kids that are growing up today that are in television, I don't even watch it. Movies, I mean, look at
Mhm.
Hollywood. I went to LA recently, last October. This is something.
What happened?
Wow, man.
What happened?
Wow. Hollywood, Beverly Hills, where I stayed.
Definitely demons there, let me tell you.
And the last night I stayed there, I cried my eyes out. I mean, I pulled out all the tricks in the book, the prayers, and it was like just hours of just wow. I wanted to die almost. I was like, what is this? Like, get me out of here. I was almost gonna leave in 2, 3 in the morning. And finally it stopped and I went to bed and I left, the next day. And I said, yeah, I'm never coming back here ever.
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
there was those fires that broke out. shortly after that. This was I must have been there in October. I think the fires broke out in like November or December, something like that.
Yeah.
I remember when it happened, but it was not long after that. And that center of LA, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of greed and movies and
Mhm.
all the shit comes out of there. I mean, there's some great people. I'm not saying that LA is a horrible place. There are some love leaders, but what I felt there was not normal.
Mhm.
That was not a normal thing. That
Mhm.
that was wow, man. Whew.
Yeah.
Maybe I've become more sensitive. Um,
Well, your discernment has grown.
yeah, yeah.
Understand? It's you can sense what's different.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Well, I don't know if it's incredible, but that's what's happening in my life.
Yeah. Well, I think it's incredible to be able to share that and to be able to talk about it and be honest about something that's really hard to talk about. It's really hard
Well,
to talk about.
I actually had it's interesting. There's one of my clients. I made a comment on a video in Facebook, and she reached out to me. She's like, "I've been going through this for 10 years." I'm like,
Wow.
"Wow!" And super amazing woman prayed for me. I'm praying for her, and just radical to be in contact with her again. And we were gonna do a kind of a live stream about demons, and she's like, "I don't know about this. I don't know if it's the right time." I'm like, people are weary to talk about it, and there's nothing to be afraid of if you know the truth. Okay.
Mhm.
This
Yeah,
is, so
that's
the
right.
truth will set you free, and learn how to pray, learn how to, you know, um, be unshakable in your faith and the love of Jesus. I mean, thank God every day for Jesus. Wow. I mean, I can't stop watching that Chosen. I can't. I'm watching it for the fifth time. Okay. It's incredible.
Yeah, it
Even
is.
the story of how Jonathan Rumi got that part is
Yeah.
incredible. They did a documentary
Yeah.
about it at the Jonathan and Jesus is another documentary, which is incredible. The guy who created the documentary itself, The Chosen, his
Mhm.
story of like how God worked through him, in his life is amazing.
It really is.
And I'm noticing right now, I'm really celebrating that there's like a massive wave of people having this revelation and turning their lives over to Jesus and God. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
seeing it on social media. It's amazing.
It is.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so and also like I think the more you're steeped in it, how like black and white it is to see what is not of that. It becomes
Mhm.
very clear.
What do you think about people who are not of the faith, that faith with Jesus? So do you have any suggestions for them if they're looking for their way?
Well, I researched all kinds of things. I astrology and human design and gene key, and,
Mhm.
all these different things. Which it's interesting. There's some really cool stuff there. It's interesting, and never gave me peace like this. Period.
Mhm.
So my advice is like to try, like go in, you'll know.
Yeah, you know right away. It's so clear. Yeah.
It's undeniable. You cannot deny that experience.
Yeah. Tell me about your thoughts on the power of prayer.
It's real. It's so real. Well, I already know, okay,
Yes.
from 15 years of
Yeah.
teaching women's empowerment and subconscious mind reprogramming and I am affirmations. Let's call this like new age, okay?
Yep.
Millions of dollars in sales in my company.
Yeah.
So it's and watching thousands of people's lives transform. Okay,
Mhm.
this is a powerful thing. This is powerful. But there's more. Okay, there's more.
So,
there's another there's a whole other realm here.
yeah.
Um And it talks in the Bible of like God don't do not give your power away to these false idols, to these
Mm-hmm.
dead things. Jesus is the living waters. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. It's a living God. It's not this dead thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people, there's Doreen Virtue came out. I mean, last summer I was watching one of her YouTube videos. I got rid of all the crystals in the house. Yeah, it's all freaked out. And it's like, okay, don't give your power away to a crystal. Don't
No.
mistake
Yeah.
God with a crystal. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I think crystals is bad to have crystals in your house? No. I still have crystals in my house, but I don't pray to crystals,
No. Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Discernment's important.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so what would I say to I think, people come to the truth when they're ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're seeking God, you're gonna find him.
Yeah.
And he never gives up on you,
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta go to God. You gotta be like, hey, you've gotta
Where are you?
yeah,
We find you.
yeah. So
Done that many times.
and thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
And then the renewing of our mind, the healing of the breaking these strongholds in the mind,
So important.
and not expecting the enemy, all the time, or failure, or more failure, because that's an area where people really get stuck,
Yeah.
and specifically people who have been under attack.
Mm-hmm.
So the power of prayer, where two or more are gathered, there I am. It's a friend of mine said yesterday that when there's one person praying, you can come up against 1,000 entities or demons, but there's two, you're now there's 10,000. So that's some, I'm loving what I'm learning every day. I've got a lot more to learn, obviously,
Yeah.
but I think it's radical. I'm grateful. Um, I think it's so amazing to see how God works through people's lives, and I'm humbled and grateful.
Yeah.
There's another story where, we think there's a story I want to share, because, we think, okay, this is what I'm doing in my life. This is reality. This is what I have to do today. And we were talking a little bit about the power of surrender. And, there was one day this is my last summer. I thought, I really have to do this email or whatever the heck I was doing in the business. And what I really wanted to do was go gardening. And I was putting in a new water sprinkler line, and I knew I needed to buy these little water spray spigots, and they don't sell them here. And so I had to go to another town. So I get in the car and I go. And on the way home, I decide to stop and get some gas. And I go to put my credit card, but it says $62 on the pump. And I'm like, wow, God is good. I got free gas. And so I was like, wow, I did the right thing today. I got free gas. Wow. And so I'm pumping the gas, and I'm so, praise God, I got free gas. This is so cool. The guy comes out of the gas station. He's like, I think maybe I just paid for some gas, and she swapped it onto your, thing. I was like, oh, dang. I thought to myself, God is great. I got free gas. And I said, yeah, I'll pay for your gas. And here's. So he starts, I put my credit card. He's pumping his own gas now. And then the lady from the gas station comes out, and she's like, did I swap something over? And I looked at her and I said, listen, I was just saying, God is good. I got free gas today. And so we're all laughing. And as I'm driving away, I realized something in my mind. And it was that, your whole point of success today, check the box on success for Vanessa today, may very well have been to just go and tell two people that God is good.
Yeah.
God is great,
Yeah.
period. And end it there.
Yep.
So we think that we're like, you know, doing our thing over here. But really, all glory to God. It's that was a moment that really, so in that surrender of like, hey, what do you want me to do today? Your will, not mine. Um, and trusting that, and acting in faith on that. You were just part of a much larger design.
Mm-hmm.
What we think we should be doing, ego, is not there's a much bigger plan, and it's cool to recognize that, to see
Yeah.
like yeah, it's just from small little miracles. The other day I was giving some things away to the thrift store in town. It's a thrift store here in town that's related to the Humane Society.
Okay.
And there was one thing it didn't take. It didn't take the this lantern that you hook up to like a one of those little propane tanks, those
Hmm.
lanterns. The thing was broken in it, so I started taking it apart, and I thought, where would I have those little sleeves that go on the inside of the lantern? And I thought, oh, go and check in your camping box. And so I go check in the camping box, pull it open, and inside the camping box there's a whole family of mice. And there's the mama mice looking at me, and she's like, ah, don't. And now the babies they're all blind and they're all crawling around,
Jeez.
and they're all squealing, and she's like, don't take
Mhm.
my babies, and I'm like, okay, let's close the box, let's take it outside, and I'm sifting through the box. I'm like, okay, we're gonna put you guys in this little wood pile over here. There must have been like living off the, ketchup packets in there. Anyways, I like scooped her out, with the soup ladle. I'm like, just put you over there, and all the little babies, and I washed everything, and put them in their little house, and I thought, like, that's a small little miracle. Tiny, the little mouse family that I don't even know how they would have gotten out of that box. I don't even know how she got into that thing. The lid was closed. Like, how did you get in there? I have no idea. But the way of like, okay, go and donate this stuff to the thrift store. The one thing they don't take, which has me think about, oh, where that would be in that box, like,
Yeah.
wow, that was so good. And I thought, Vanessa, maybe that's a check the box on success today. You save a little mouse family.
Yeah.
That's it. Like we think we have to strive or do this or perform. And it's like, no, just obey God's will for your life. And in this moment, it could be different from day to day. But yeah, I find a
That's
lot
a
of,
great. It's great.
yeah,
It's a great story. A
yeah,
great. Yeah.
big and small miracles.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's special that you want to share it, and I think everybody who's listening to this is going to be really happy too. It's the one thing about you you've always done. You've always done since day one is share the truth wherever you are, wherever it is, and share it to help people. What you learn, what you understand, what how you grow, what you're going through. You always lay it out there.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It actually is the only thing that made sense to,
Yeah.
and when I looked at it through through this lens, was like,
Mm.
wow.
I think the key thing is the instant peace. It's you can't even like it's you can't explain the clarity when you go from you're being attacked to faith to peace. It's like, yeah, I'm good. It's so quiet here now. Wow. It's so peaceful, right? Everything around, within, without, the mind, it's so peaceful and quiet and beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so for me, that's been the most evident how
Uh,
everything goes peaceful.
Quiet. Yeah, it's
Quiet.
you can't compete with it. It's
No.
uncomparable. It's a peace beyond reason,
Yeah.
and it's real.
Yeah.
And I feel like, the more wild it gets here in the world, that's, the more people are seeking that out, and
Hmm.
hopefully people find this and are inspired
Yeah.
by this interview. Really, my goal today was just to really have a conversation and share.
Yeah.
There's more. There's some really cool videos in that playlist that I mentioned, and that's just something that I always share with my clients or colleagues or conversations I have with people. If I pray for
Hmm.
them, I'm like, hey, check this out. You might find some value in there as well
Hmm.
on specific prayers and cleansing bloodlines, and
Yeah.
it's so good.
It's so
Wow.
good. It is really good. And it's simple.
Yeah, anybody can do it.
It's simple. Anybody can do it. Yeah. Well, it's been great.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for
Thank
having
you
coming.
too.
We're jumping on here today and being brave and courageous to have this conversation.
Yeah. Just to be with you is great.
I love you.
Love you too.